have John Van Limbeek joining us from Abbott Wealth Management on this Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you, John. How are things in your world?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah,
so the British are making a big vote tonight, taking a big vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on the news for the last short period of time anyway, and they're going to be, there's the leave or stay camp for sure, right? So some people are asking, what do we do to position ourselves in the event that they possibly leave?
Right.
And the question is, that's a good question, but it doesn't, you can't wait till the last minute to ask it or to make a change. So
right.
If you look at it, we look at it a little bit differently. If you just, in your portfolio, if you have companies with a competitive advantage, they're going to do very well before or after. So the noise and the market volatility and the fear, yes, it changes the portfolios that people have day to day in values.
Sure.
But if the underlying fundamentals are strong of those businesses, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, so world events can happen anytime, right? So tonight the British are voting whether or not they want to leave the European Union, but tomorrow it could be something else. Ultimately, you have to have faith that you've chosen good portfolios that will not waver in world-changing moments.
True.
Is that right?
Exactly, especially if that bothers you.
Right.
Like I said, some people, and that's where it comes down to, you can control the quality of the companies you have, good or bad, but you can't control those prices day to day. So if we stick around, and I brought up a chart just
see that chart. Just
to show you, one of like a key dividend portfolio that we use.
Right.
You can see where we say, it's actually not on the bottom there, but the strong fundamentals and dividend growth lead to share price appreciation over time. And you'll never, diversification is key in that field, because you got some companies that have done very well over a 10-year period, and we always, are talking about the dividend growth. How does that factor in? What does that look like? Why do we pay so much attention to that?
Right.
Those strong, when you see dividend growth or companies making more money and paying you more money, that's a great sign that the company's fundamentally strong. That doesn't mean that the share prices won't go down 20% if something happens in the EU, or if something happens in oil. We saw it in January this year, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever kind of global event happens. But if your time horizon's long enough, hence we talked about time horizons before, and you follow those and you invest in those big companies out there and watch those dividends grow over 1, 3, 5, 10 years.
Look at some of the
share prices will follow over time for sure.
Some of them are huge at the 10-year mark.
Absolutely, and it's not abnormal. It's just you just need that. It would be nice if you knew Agrium was going to do that, because then you could buy one. But obviously there's too much risk in one. But it gives you an idea that even with a balanced approach, you're still doing very well.
Yes.
But you gotta be able to ignore the noise.
You do have to ignore the noise.
Yeah.
Look at the horizon.
Yeah.
If you will.
Keep looking 5, 10 years out, kind of thing.
Yes.
Even when you're retired, that volatility should be less, but you still got a 20-year plus a window.
Sure.
And that's the tough thing about it. It's tough. It doesn't make it any easier, whether you're 20 or 65. You just have to keep that perspective, perspective in there. So.
We have a question of the week this week.
We do.
Let's see that, if we could, please. What is a trust?
We talked about this a little bit more in past episodes, but a trust is simply a document that lays out your wishes of how you want your assets to be dispersed, like that. Think of it that way.
Right.
You can have a house in the trust. You can have assets in the trust, like money-making assets, a business, if you really wanted to put a business in there. But it's just really a formal document that lays out how the money or that asset's going to be dispersed over time, usually to a beneficiary or your children, or maybe a disabled child, something like that. And you have some control over that too, in regards to who can have access to that trust. So it puts a number of parameters in place that if you're no longer alive, most of them are set up, not all of them are set up after death or at the time of death, that it just puts some parameters and say, this is for my children, this is how the money is going to come out of that trust, or that trust for my children or my spouse and then my children. And it really is a way to have some control over your estate. Would
it be fair to say the trust is one of the things you find in the will?
Yes.
So
normally they're set up in the will, absolutely,
okay.
exactly, to protect the spouse and then protect the children's spouse and pass the assets mostly along the bloodline, if you think of it that way. You know, with second marriages these days, some stuff can be attacked that way, and it's just a way to protect the spouse for sure, and to protect the children if something happens to both, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Disabled children, maybe spendthrift children, right? If you know your child's just going to inherit a big chunk of money, and there's not going to do what's best for him or her, then you maybe want some control over it. How fast you get it, when you get it, what you can do with it. You know, those are all things you can put in there, but it does take the expertise of a lawyer to do it, though. Like you said, these are things that we work with, but the lawyer has to set it up for sure.
Okay, fair enough.
And the accountant really too. I mean, these two should be, all three of us should be involved.
And decreasing the amount of headaches you're going to leave people, you know, your executor, whoever that's in charge afterwards.
Yeah, that helps, absolutely. I mean, that factors in for sure in regards to, because all your wishes, or not all your wishes, but the intentions are there right up front. You got 3 or 4 parties knowing what you want to do with that right up front.
Yeah.
So.
All right, somber information, but things you need to think about once in a while. We're talking about weddings in the next segment. John, thanks for being here. If you have any questions for Abbott Wealth, you can certainly get a hold of them. The information's on the screen. We're back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.